Today's gospel, I believe, touches the very marrow of our nature. For example, we see and expect certain kinds of admirable behavior in other people. We expect them to be merciful. We expect them to be kind, to be selfless, to be engaged with good causes. We expect in others the attitude the king had in today's gospel towards this slave who owed him 10,000 talents. We expect that those around us may write off our debts with them. Not only financial debts, but also moral, wise debts as well. However, as Jesus says in Matthew chapter 7, verses 3 to 5, we don't see the log we have in our very eyes. We are like the slave whose debt was written off. We could easily fail to behave to the same standard as it has been shown to us. We are not able to see beyond ourselves sometimes. We're expecting the rules to be bended a little bit to us, but not to others. We could call with different names, and some of us, we could call it our blind spot. But we have to be conscious that we have something called our blind spot. And it seems that it is a trick that it is deep into our hearts and in our minds, by which we are unable to recognize our own faults. However, when we see something wrong on the other person, or somebody asks us for advice, we are there to utter all kinds of judgments or advice that are morally and ethically correct according to what we know and learn, but not according to what we practice and do. In many aspects of life, we raise our voice and ask people to act correctly. We ask, for example, our elected politicians to be morally spotless, to the people who work with us to be honest, to our family members. We urge them to behave with great moral standards. We voice our desire to host the homeless, to feed the hungry, to clothe the naked. But when these words need to get to action, it seems like we forget about them. We find our blind spot. When we examine ourselves in such areas, we could find the results quite discouraging. We may find that we are not merciful enough, that we are not kind enough, that we are not honest enough. And we fail this test because we trust too much in ourselves. At the end, my brothers and sisters, we have to be willing to recognize ourselves and learn to live with ourselves, knowing our very limitations and shortcomings. And this is not to say that we have to be comfortable if we lack charity, mercy towards others. But we need to recognize the need of the presence of the Lord in our lives, especially His grace in our life. Today in the first reading we read Joshua as he led the people of Israel towards the promised land. He received this great power from Moses as Moses laid on his hands on him, and he was responsible for all these people. The bishop laid his hands upon all of us when we were confirmed, and we have this great power to work with God's grace. So today we have to trust in God's grace, as Joshua trusted in the grace that God bestowed upon him. We need to go in this journey that is of self-knowing and self-acceptance, and we need to undertake this journey very carefully. This journey will go through many hills. We'll encounter many mountains to climb. We encounter many slopes we need to descend carefully. Many plains that border our routine. Nevertheless, if we lack God's grace, that journey is worthless making it. Therefore, today, we need to ask that the grace of God penetrate in our hearts to recognize our limitations, and that through His grace we may have the courage to spread the love God has placed within us, knowing that we need to pass this Jordan, this river, to become anew with the Lord, to change our hearts, to be able to love our neighbor and to spread this mercy of God as we have received His mercy.